Two people earn the exact same paycheck. One ends the year with savings, calm, and options. The other ends it right where they started, tired, behind, and quietly confused about why nothing moved. The difference was never luck, and it was never the number on the check. It was a handful of silent habits the Stoics understood 2,000 years ago. Let's get into them. Here's the first one, and it sounds too small to matter. The wealthy and silence type has trained themselves to pause before reacting. Not pause like meditation. Pause like a half-second of space between something happening and them responding to it. Watch how most people move through a normal day. An email comes in that stings a little. They fire back immediately. A coworker says something careless. They carry it for 6 hours. A sale pops up. They buy. A notification glows. They tap. The phone buzzes. The head turns. The whole day is reaction. One thing happens, and they bounce off it like a ball off a wall. And here's the part almost nobody connects. Every single one of those reactions costs something. It costs money, or it costs time, or it costs the one thing that actually builds a life: your attention. The Stoics had a word for the goal here. They called it prohairesis, roughly the power of choice, the piece of you that decides. And they were obsessed with one idea. Between what happens to you and what you do about it, there is a gap, a small, quiet gap. And inside that gap is your entire freedom. Most people never live inside that gap. They've handed it away. The world pushes and they move. Something pulls and they follow. They think they're making choices, but they're really just being steered. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what does pausing have to do with money? Fair question. So let me show you the line. Almost every dollar you've ever wasted, you wasted in a moment of no pause. The impulse buy, the subscription you forgot to cancel, the argument that cost you a client, the job you quit in anger, the investment you jumped into because everyone was excited. None of those were thinking. All of those were reaction. And it runs the other way too. Almost every good financial decision you've ever made happened in a moment where you slowed down enough to actually choose. You sat with it. You let the urgency pass. You asked, is this me or is this just the moment talking? So the first habit isn't about being rich. It's about reclaiming that gap. Building a half-second of space on purpose again and again until it becomes who you are. Because the person who owns the gap stops bleeding money, time, and energy through 1,000 tiny holes they never even noticed. And that, quietly, is where wealth starts. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the second habit goes against almost everything we've been taught. We've been taught that the path to a better life is more. Earn more, buy more, upgrade more, want more. And so the whole game becomes a chase. You get the thing, you feel good for a week, and then the bar moves, and you're chasing again. The Stoics looked at that chase and said something strange. They said, wealth isn't having what you want. Wealth is wanting what you have. Seneca, who, by the way, was one of the richest men in Rome, so this isn't some guy who couldn't afford nice things, Seneca said it plainly. It is not the man who has too little who is poor, but the one who craves more. Sit with that for a second. He's saying poverty isn't a number in a bank account. Poverty is a feeling of not enough that follows you no matter how much you make. And he's right, isn't he? You know people who earn good money and feel broke every month. You might be one of them. I've been one of them. Here's the part almost nobody sees. Every want you carry is a debt you've signed up for. Every "I need this to be okay" is a leash. And the more leashes you're holding, the less free you are, because now your peace depends on getting all of it. The Stoics ran a quiet experiment for this. They'd practice voluntary discomfort, eat simple food for a few days, wear the rough clothes, skip the thing they were sure they needed, not to punish themselves, to prove something to themselves, to stand at the bottom and say, look, this is the floor, and the floor is fine. I can live here. Because once you know the floor is survivable, something changes in you. fear loosens its grip. You stop making desperate decisions. You stop saying yes to the wrong job because you're terrified of going without. You stop spending to fill a hole that money was never going to fill. And now, I know what this sounds like. It sounds like I'm telling you to want nothing, live in a bare room, and call it enlightenment. That's not it. The Stoics weren't against having things. Seneca had a fortune. The point was, never don't own anything. The point was, don't be owned by what you want. There's a line that captures it perfectly. Have what you want, but don't be possessed by it. Hold things with an open hand, not a clenched fist. Use them, enjoy them, but stay free enough that losing them wouldn't break you. And here's the quiet wealth in it. The person who has trained themselves to want less spends less without effort. They save without struggling. They walk past the upgrade without feeling deprived. And while everyone around them is running on a treadmill that never ends, this person is just standing still, getting richer and somehow more at peace. That's not deprivation. That's leverage. All right, this next one is the foundation under everything else. If you only take one idea from this whole video, take this one. The Stoics divided the entire world into two boxes. Things you control and things you don't. That's it. Two boxes. And they said almost all human suffering comes from one mistake, putting things in the wrong box. We pour our energy into the box we don't control, and we neglect the box we do. Epictetus, who was born a slave, which makes his teaching hit a little harder, said it like this: some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. And peace, he said, lives entirely in knowing the difference. So let's run your money through those two boxes, because this is where it gets practical. What's not in your control? The economy, the market, whether prices go up, whether your industry shifts, whether a client says yes, whether your investment goes up this month, whether the raise comes. You can influence some of these, but you don't control them. They are not up to you. So what is in your control? Whether you show up, whether you keep learning, how much you spend, how much you save, the quality of your work, whether you keep your word, whether you build the skill, send the message, do the rep. These are completely yours. Nobody can take them. Now watch what most people do. They spend their whole emotional life in the box they don't control. They refresh the market. They stress about the economy. They wait for the perfect conditions, the lucky break, the moment things finally line up. And the box they actually own, the work, the discipline, the saving, the showing up, sits there neglected while they wait for the world to hand them a result. And here's what's wild. The world doesn't reward worry. It rewards the box you control, the skill you built, the reps you put in, the money you didn't waste, the thing you shipped while everyone else was anxious. So the third habit is simple to say and hard to live. Starve the box you don't control and feed the box you do. Stop spending your energy on the outcome. Pour it all into the input. Do your part with everything you have, and then let go of the rest, because the rest was never yours to carry. There's a strange freedom that comes when you really live this. The pressure drops, because you're not trying to control the ocean anymore. You're just learning to sail. And the person who masters their own box, calm, consistent, focused on what's theirs, tends to end up exactly where the anxious person was trying to force their way to, quietly, without the panic. Now, let's talk about the word in the title that nobody explains: silence. Why silence? Why does this kind of wealth show up so quietly? Here's the thing the Stoics understood about the human ego, and it's a little brutal. Most people don't actually want to be successful. They want to be seen as successful. And those are two completely different projects, pulling in opposite directions. The one who wants to be seen spends money to perform. The car is a billboard. The clothes are a billboard. The lifestyle is a performance for an audience that honestly isn't even watching that closely. Every dollar goes into looking the part instead of becoming the thing. The one who wants to actually be, they go quiet. They keep their moves to themselves. They let the work talk instead of their mouth, and while everyone's watching the loud one, the quiet one is building something real underneath, where no one's looking. Marcus Aurelius is the perfect picture of this. He was the most powerful man in the entire world, Emperor of Rome. And he wrote a private journal to himself, reminding himself to stay humble, to do the work, to not need the applause. He never wrote it to be published. It was just a man, alone, keeping himself honest. And that's why we still read it 2,000 years later. Not because he announced his greatness, because he didn't. Here's the part that connects to your wallet. Announcing your plans actually drains them. There's something about telling everyone what you're going to do that tricks your brain into feeling like you already did it. You get the little hit of approval, the wow, that's amazing. And the hunger to actually finish quietly leaks away. So the silent person has an edge that looks like patience but is really strategy. They don't announce the side project, they build it. They don't post the savings goal, they hit it. They don't perform the discipline, they just keep it. And because they're not spending energy managing how they look, all of that energy goes into the actual thing. Now, you might hear all this and think, so I'm supposed to hide, never celebrate, never share? No. This isn't about secrecy or shame, it's about where your fuel goes. Every bit of energy you spend trying to look successful is energy you didn't spend becoming successful. The silence isn't a rule. It's just what's left when you stop performing and start building. And the strangest thing happens to people who go quiet like this. The respect they were chasing, it shows up anyway. Just later and real and impossible to fake, because the world eventually notices the person who never needed it to. Okay, this next habit is the one I wish someone had grabbed me by the shoulders and explained when I was 20. We treat money like it's the scarce thing. We guard it, count it, stress about it, and meanwhile we hand out time like it's infinite, like there's always going to be more. The Stoics flipped that completely. Seneca wrote an entire piece on it, and his point was almost violent in how direct it was. We are not given a short life. We waste a huge part of the one we have. We're careless with the only thing we can never get back. Think about how strange we are. If someone tried to steal $100 from you, you'd fight them. But people steal your hours constantly. A meeting that should have been an email, a scroll that ate your whole evening, a relationship that drains you, a complaint you've replayed 200 times, and we just let it happen. We defend the money and give away the thing money is supposed to buy. Here's the reframe that changes how you live. Every hour is currency. You are spending it whether you notice or not. The only question is whether you're spending it on purpose or by accident. And once you see time as the real wealth, your money decisions get sharper too, because now you ask a better question. Not just, can I afford this? But, how many hours of my life did this cost? And was it worth those hours? That thing you bought wasn't $40. It was the 2 hours of your life it took to earn $40. Suddenly the math feels different. The wealthy and silence person guards their time like it's the actual treasure, because it is. They say no a lot. They protect their mornings. They don't let other people's noise live rent-free in their head. They don't spend 3 days angry about a 5-minute event. They're not busy. Busy is easy. They're deliberate. That's rare. Picture 2 accounts. One holds your money, one holds your hours, and it's draining every single second, and it never refills. The Stoics were trying to wake us up to the second account, because you can always make more money. You will never make more time. So protect it like the currency it actually is. Let me tell you about a man who lived all of this, because it makes the whole thing real. His name was Epictetus, and he started at the absolute bottom. Born into slavery in the Roman Empire, he owned nothing. He didn't even own his own body, someone else did. There's a story that his master once twisted his leg for fun, and Epictetus, calm as anything, just warned him it would break. The master kept going. The leg broke, and Epictetus simply said, "There, I told you it would." He spent the rest of his life walking with a limp. He had every reason on earth to be bitter. No money, no status, no freedom, a body that betrayed him. And here's what he understood. The thing that made him one of the most respected teachers in history. They could take his body, they could take his possessions, his comfort, his safety. But there was one box they could never reach. The box of his own choices, his own judgments, his own response to the world. That box was his completely, and no master could touch it. So he poured everything into the only box he owned. He couldn't control his circumstances, so he mastered himself. And eventually freed, he opened a school, and the most powerful people in Rome sent their sons to learn from the former slave. The man who started with nothing ended up shaping emperors. Now look at what he actually had. The pause, that impossible calm under pressure, wanting less. A man who had nothing and still felt free. The two boxes, the entire foundation of his life. The silence, he never wrote a single book. Everything we have was written down by a student. And time, he treated his one limited life as the only fortune that mattered. Every habit in this video lived by a man who owned nothing. And he ended up richer, in freedom, in respect, in peace, than the masters who once owned him. That's the whole point. This was never about the money first. The money is downstream. It's what tends to follow a person who stopped leaking energy, stopped chasing, stopped performing, and started mastering the one box that was always theirs. So now you can see why this kind of wealth grows quietly. It's not loud because it's not built on a single big break. It's built on 1,000 small, invisible choices that no one claps for. The pause nobody saw. The purchase you didn't make. The reaction you swallowed. The hour you protected. The plan you didn't announce. None of it looks like much in the moment. That's exactly why it works. While everyone's chasing the dramatic, visible version of success, the loud one, the overnight one, the silent habits are compounding underneath, day after day, with no audience. And one day you look up and your life is steady. You have room to breathe. You're not afraid of every small bump. You make decisions from clarity instead of panic. And the people around you can't quite figure out how you got there because they never saw it happen. That's the wealth the Stoics were really pointing at, not just money in an account, though that tends to come. The deeper wealth. The kind where you're not controlled by your impulses, your fears, your need for approval, or the next shiny thing. The kind where you finally own yourself. Because here's the truth underneath all of it. A person who can't govern their own mind will never hold on to money no matter how much they make. And a person who can, that person could lose everything and rebuild it. Because the real asset was never the money, it was them. So I'll leave you with the question that actually matters. Not how do I make more, as everyone asks that one. The better question is this: where is your energy leaking? Where are you reacting instead of choosing? What are you chasing that you don't even really want? Which box are you pouring yourself into, the one you control or the one you never could? What are you performing instead of building? And how much of your time, your real currency, are you handing away without noticing? Sit with that one honestly, because the leaks are quiet. They don't announce themselves. But the moment you start sealing them, one pause, one no, one protected hour at a time, everything slowly begins to change. Not loudly, not overnight, in silence. The way real wealth always comes. So here's what I actually want from you. Drop it in the comments. What's the one habit, the one leak you know you need to close? Be honest. Naming it out loud is where it starts. And if this gave you something real, something you'll still be thinking about an hour from now, subscribe and stay. Because here, we don't use Stoicism to sound wise. We use it to actually live better. I'll see you in the next one.